Students, welcome to the session 3 of solutions chapter, wherein we are starting off with effect of pressure on dissolution of gas in liquid. The last session we have understood the other two factors for the dissolution of gas in liquid, that is nature of solute and effect of temperature. Today we will be discussing effect of pressure and how pressure influences a gas being dissolved in a liquid is quantitatively enunciated by Henry's law. Let us understand Henry's law, all the mathematical and theoretical aspects of it, because it is one of the most important concepts of this chapter. Okay, now see here, say there is a liquid in which you are trying to fill a gas. Of course, the mouth of the liquid cannot be so wide, the vessel cannot be so wide, because in order to mix a gas it needs to be a little narrow. I understand that. Now you are trying to fill in a gas through it, which I will show in the form of another inverted vessel maybe. Likewise inverted into it, and we are trying to fill in the gas in it. Okay, now I am very poor at drawing, bear with that. Okay, now see, the gas is being dissolved here, let's assume. So now it has become a solution, let us assume, and there is some more gas which is trying to dissolve further. Now gas plus liquid becoming a solution of gas and liquid, the forward process can be called dissolution, as we discussed in the last session. If the gas is trying to come out of solution, then you can call the reverse process as liberation of that gas, right? Now you can understand that this solution at some point will reach in equilibrium with this gas. This solution at some point will reach in equilibrium with this gas. Now, when this gas is in equilibrium with the solution of this gas in this particular liquid in which you are trying to dissolve it, and this gas is exerting some pressure on this liquid, which is an equilibrium pressure. The pressure exerted by this gas on this solution at equilibrium. Then the Henry's law states that the mass of gas that can be completely dissolved, you know very well, meaning of complete dissolution is to prepare a saturated solution, and preparing a saturated solution means the dissolution process reaching equilibrium. Okay, so the mass of gas that can be completely dissolved in a given liquid at a given temperature, we are talking about at constant temperature, please understand, because we are talking about variation of only pressure, so at constant temperature. In a given liquid at a given temperature is directly proportional to the pressure of gas, directly proportional to the pressure of gas which is in equilibrium with the solution, which is in equilibrium with the solution. Let us understand it again. I am trying to fill in a gas in a liquid and prepare a solution of gas in liquid. Not a very unfamiliar concept. You see, you think of preparation of soda, any soda, goli soda, Kinley soda, whatever you want to take it. How is soda prepared? By dissolving carbon dioxide gas in water, right? So I am trying to do something like that here. Then after a point, the process reaches equilibrium. Now the mass of the gas, and once it reaches equilibrium, by the way, the solution becomes saturated. Now the mass of the gas that can be dissolved in this liquid completely to make a saturated solution, okay, in a given liquid at a given temperature is directly proportional to the pressure exerted by the gas which is in equilibrium with the solution. This is the basic statement of Henry's law. Clear? So mathematically you can express m is directly proportional to P, where m is mass of the gas that is completely dissolved to form a saturated solution, and P is pressure exerted by the gas at equilibrium. Now simple. If the pressure exerted is larger, by the time equilibrium is achieved, means in a saturated solution at that temperature you can see more mass of gas being dissolved. If the pressure exerted is lesser at a given temperature, in that quantity of liquid, less mass of gas will be dissolved to form a saturated solution. So it reaches solution with larger or smaller amount of gas by based on the pressure that is being exerted by the gas. Is that clear? To remove proportionality, you may introduce a constant K. So m is equal to K into P, you can say. Okay. This is the fundamental expression of Henry's law, basic expression of Henry's law. But we are going to derive a more important expression from this basic expression, which actually is part of your NCERT syllabus. Okay. Now we are going to express Henry's law in terms of not the mass of gas, but in terms of the mole fraction of the solute. Means, see, to call it solubility, we can express it in terms of mass of gas in 100 grams of solvent, or you can express in terms of grams per liter, or you can express in terms of moles per liter, or you can express in terms of mole fraction of the solute. We discussed, right? Now, from this expression, I am going to derive an expression in terms of solubility being mole fraction of the gaseous solute. That is the expression, and that is the derivative, that is the statement that you actually have in your NCERT syllabus. But otherwise, for entrances, even this understanding and the derivation is equally important. That's why I have started off this. So you understood the basic statement and basic formula of Henry's law. Let us go to the expression of Henry's law in terms of mole fraction of the solute. To get expression of Henry's law in terms of mole fraction of the solute, let us take the basic expression that I was just writing. Mass is directly proportional to pressure of the gas on the solution at equilibrium, that is equal to Kp we wrote, right? Now let weight of solvent be equal to W. See, we said in a fixed weight of solvent it is dissolved, right? Now let me consider the weight of solvent as W, and let molar masses of solute and solvent respectively be M1 and M2. Let us assume molar mass of solute and solvent are M1 and M2 respectively. Now what I do? Divide this equation M is equal to Kp by weight of solvent W. Then what happens? M by W is equal to K by W into P. Now as I told you, we are going to take fixed quantity of solvent. That's why the ratio K by W can be taken as another constant. So let me write M by W is equal to K dash into P, where you can understand K dash is equal to K by W. Now divide the expression by M2 by M1. Divide this equation by M2 by M1, that is ratio of masses of molar mass of solvent by molar mass of solute. Then what happens? You are going to get M by M1 divided by W by M2. That means mass of solute divided by molar mass of solute, it becomes, and weight of solvent divided by molar mass of solvent is equal to K dash into M2 by M1 into P, you can say. And you know very well, molar masses of any substance are constant. That's why this ratio will be constant, and product of these constants can be taken as another constant. Point number 1. Point number 2, let us assume solute as 1, solvent as 2. Then mass of solute by molar mass of solute is nothing but number of moles of solute. You know that, right? Given weight by gram molecular weight is nothing but number of moles. So mass of solute by molar mass of solute is number of moles of solute. I am labeling solute as 1 here. And mass of solvent by molar mass of solvent is nothing but number of moles of solvent. So N1 by N2 is equal to, I can call this as K double dash into P, where you can understand K double dash is equal to K dash into M2 by M1. Right. Now children, you know very well mole fraction of solute X1 is equal to number of moles of solute by number of moles of solution. That is total number of moles of solution. That is number of moles of solute by number of moles of solute plus number of moles of solvent. You know that. Right. Now we know very well in dilute solutions solvent will be in very large quantity, solute will be in very small quantity, and when we convert it into number of moles of solvent will be so large that N1 plus N2 will be almost equal to N2. For example, there is 0.01 moles of solute and there is 5 moles of solvent, let us say. Then 5 plus 0.01 is nothing but 5.01. 5.01 is almost equal to 5, right? Likewise, in dilute solutions, number of moles of solvent will be very large. That's why sum of number of moles of solute and number of moles of solvent will be almost equal to number of moles of solvent. That's why in the place of N1 and N2, I can just N1 plus N2, I can just take N2. That means the ratio N1 by N2 can be considered as a mole fraction of solute. Therefore, I can write X1, that is mole fraction of solute, is equal to K double dash into P. Or I can say P is equal to 1 by K double dash into, P is equal to 1 by K double dash into mole fraction. Are you observing me? 1 by K double dash can be written as another constant. 1 by constant is a constant. Therefore, I can write finally P is equal to KH into mole fraction of solute, which is the final expression of Henry's law, and KH is called as Henry's law constant. KH is called as Henry's law constant. We will talk in detail about Henry's law constant immediately because it needs to be understood in detail, clearly. That's very important. Okay. So let me quickly review the derivation I have done just now. From the basic definition or basic statement of Henry's law, we got the expression M is equal to Kp. Now, we have dissolved that gas in fixed weight of solvent. I assume that weight as W. And I assume the molar masses of solute and solvent as M1 and M2 respectively. Then, first I divide the expression M is equal to Kp by the weight of solvent. M by W is equal to K by W into P. I call the ratio K by W as another constant K dash. Then I divided the expression M by W is equal to K dash into P by the ratio M2 by M1. That is the ratio of molar mass of solvent to the molar mass of solute. When I am multiplying this by M2 by M1, it is dividing, M1 will be dividing here in the numerator and M2 will be dividing here in the denominator. Clear? That's why M by M1 divided by W by M2 is equal to K dash into M2 by M1 into P. Now, since this whole ratio can be called as another constant, I replace the constant, this whole ratio by K double dash. And mass of solute by molar mass of solute is N1. Mass of solvent by molar mass of solvent is N2. That is number of moles. So, I replace the ratio of mass by molar mass as number of moles. Then, generally perfect definition of mole fraction is number of moles of solute by total number of moles of solution. But since the number of moles of solvent will be too large, sum of number of moles of solute and number of moles of solvent will be almost equal to number of moles of solvent. So, the ratio N1 by N2 can be taken as the mole fraction itself. Since the ratio N1 by N2 can be taken as the mole fraction itself, it becomes X1, that is mole fraction of solute, is equal to K double dash into P, or P is equal to 1 by K double dash into X1, and in the place of 1 by K double dash, I have taken a constant called kH, which is called Henry's law constant. From that knowledge, I will provide myself space here on the top for writing the new statement for Henry's law. From that knowledge, you can say pressure of a gas being dissolved in a liquid is directly proportional to the mole fraction of gas in liquid. You know, statements of laws must be put in double inverteds, and this is the new expression. So pressure exerted by the gas is directly proportional to the mole fraction of that solute gas in the solution. The proportionality constant here is kH, that is Henry's law constant. Now, if you check your EPL or your NCERT textbook, directly they would have given you this statement and they would have given you this mathematical expression. But this mathematical expression is derived from the basic statement and basic expression that I have explained you so far. Is that clear? That is Henry's law. Now, how do you approach it? See, for complete understanding, we have learnt it from basic. Now, when you have to write, say in your board exam, in entrance examinations, no problem. We get all application questions, numerical based questions, and we will solve them accordingly. Whereas in board exams, if they ask you state Henry's law and write the mathematical expression, you go with this statement and this mathematical expression, mentioning that P is the pressure of the gas, X is the mole fraction of gas in the solution, and KH is the Henry's law constant. Is that clear? Now, what we are left to understand in this concept Henry's law is in detail understanding characteristics of KH, because unless KH is clearly understood, the calculations cannot be done and analysis cannot be done regarding solubility of gas and liquid. Number two, we have to understand is what are the applications of Henry's law and what are the limitations of Henry's law. Let us go to all these things. Okay. Let us understand and get to know KH more. See, KH value is constant for a given gas in a given solvent. Means, please understand, if solvent changes, even KH value also changes. So it is constant only for, say for example, I am talking about dissolution of carbon dioxide in water. KH value for carbon dioxide will be specific in water. KH value for same carbon dioxide will be different if you are trying to dissolve in any other solvent, if it is soluble, by the way. So it is constant for a given gas in a given solvent. So it is different for different solvents, number one. Number two, it is constant at a given temperature. Means, as long as I am talking about dissolution of a gas in that solvent at that temperature, that KH value applies. Whereas if temperature changes, KH value also changes. And look at the interesting observation, KH value is directly proportional to the temperature. Now, in the last session, we have clearly understood that all the gases exhibit exothermic dissolution. So, as temperature increases, extent of dissolution of gas in liquid decreases. That we have understood while discussing effect of temperature in the last session. Now, here we are telling that it has been observed that KH values will be increasing if temperature increases. That means, if temperature increases, KH value increases. And we established already that if temperature increases, solubility of gas in liquid decreases. That means, if KH, higher the KH value, conclusion, higher the KH value, lower the solubility. So please understand, solubility of a gas in liquid is inversely proportional to KH value, which makes a very commonly asked question both in board exams and entrance exams. You go and cross-check old papers of second PUC board examination. Many a times for 1 mark, they have asked questions like this. Say, there is a gas A whose KH value is some 20 kilobar. There is a gas B whose KH value is some 30 kilobar. Which gas is more soluble in that particular liquid at that particular temperature, they will ask you. So the one having lower KH value will be more soluble, the one having higher KH value will be less soluble. Very commonly asked question. And by the way, from this experimental fact that KH values are higher at higher temperature, we concluded that higher the KH value, lower the solubility. Even the same thing can be related mathematically. Just now we concluded that pressure is equal to KH value into mole fraction of solute. Mole fraction of solute is the indicative of solubility, extent of solubility of that gas in that liquid. Now, mole fraction is equal to partial pressure by KH. So, for a given pressure, mole fraction is inversely proportional to KH value, very clear. So, from all the angles, you should understand that higher the KH value, lower the solubility of gas in liquid. That is another aspect to be noted in case of Henry's law constant. Then comes, see, how do you obtain KH? It's so simple. Draw a graph for pressure versus mole fraction of gas. Obviously, you are going to get a straight line passing through the origin because the relation is P is equal to KH into X, that is Y is equal to MX. So you are going to get a straight line passing through the origin, and from the slope of this curve, you are going to get the KH value, obviously. Last and most important, you can understand P is equal to KH into X, and you know very well mole fraction has no units. Therefore, by unit analysis, if you understand, units of KH must be units of pressure itself. As you can notice, in this example, I was saying kilobar, kilobar. So, units of KH are same as units of pressure. And you know pressure is expressed in atmosphere, bar, pascals, etc. Generally, in literature, KH is expressed in terms of kilobar. In terms of bar, its values will be larger. So, in terms of kilobar, they express so that the magnitude comes smaller. Clear? So, it is constant for a given solvent and it is constant at a particular temperature, and the value increases with temperature, which follows that higher the KH value, lower the solubility, which can be concluded from the mathematical expression of Henry's law also. The KH value can be obtained from the slope of the curve for pressure versus mole fraction of the solute, and units of KH value are same as units of KH are same as the units of pressure and generally expressed in kilobar. That is about Henry's law constant. Henry's law helps in understanding certain natural phenomena. At the same time, it helps in applying certain aspects, resolving certain issues, or it is used as in some applications also. So let us understand where all Henry's law is useful to humankind, whether in understanding the existing aspects or applying it to certain aspects required for human beings. The first very popular application you can get is, see, in preparation of beverages, like you take soda, cool drinks, the aerated drinks that you drink generally, Sprite, Coke, Thumbs Up, etc., whatever. So in the preparation of all these beverages, Henry's law has its direct application. See, you are dissolving a gas in liquid. More the pressure you apply, more gas gets dissolved. That's how you prepare beverages. So Henry's law is the basis for preparation of aerated drinks. Okay. Then second important application of Henry's law is biologically related. Supply of oxygen to tissues is based on Henry's law. How, I'll tell you. See, in lungs, the partial pressure of oxygen is very high because you are breathing and there is excess of oxygen there. In tissues, the oxygen is being consumed and carbon dioxide is produced. So in tissues, partial pressure of oxygen is less. So partial pressure of oxygen is more in lungs, less in tissues. Now what happens? When blood is being pumped from lungs to the tissues. In lungs, because partial pressure of oxygen is high, hemoglobin combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. I mean, blood dissolves oxygen nicely. According to Henry's law, the solubility of gas in liquid is directly proportional to its partial pressure, right? So, because partial pressure of oxygen is more, the blood dissolves oxygen nicely in lungs. Then when the blood is being supplied to the tissues, in tissues partial pressure of oxygen is less. So automatically solubility of oxygen in blood decreases. So the blood gets deoxygenated. Because the blood gets deoxygenated, it is supplied to the tissues for all the cellular activities required. So that way, supply of oxygen to tissues for cellular activities involves the principle of Henry's law. Then number 3, there is a problem or a disease called Bend's, which the problem is being resolved by understanding the concepts of Henry's law. First, let us understand what is Bend's exactly and what exactly happens, and then let us understand how it was resolved after analyzing it. Okay. See, these deep sea divers, scuba divers, when they dive into the sea, they generally carry air cylinders containing air. You know very well, air contains the two major components, oxygen as well as nitrogen. Because air is required for breathing inside the sea, at the depths of sea, these guys are just carrying these cylinders. Now, apart from oxygen, they are breathing nitrogen also. Generally, the confidence is that nitrogen is less soluble in blood. That's why it is not going to harm us in general when you breathe air. Whereas under high pressure deep inside the sea, according to Henry's law, as the pressure increases, dissolution of gas in liquid increases. So, apart from oxygen, nitrogen also gets dissolved. In general, under normal pressure, the solubility of nitrogen in blood is very poor. So, you are breathing air, no problem. Whereas under high pressure deep in the sea, because pressure will be high, nitrogen solubility in blood increases. Now, one toxic gas is being dissolved in our blood, first problem. Second problem, when they suddenly come to the shore, when the pressure is suddenly released, the solubility of nitrogen gas in blood is suddenly decreased. Suddenly, the nitrogen will be released into the blood vessels, which causes interruption in the flow of blood, circulation of blood, resulting in a disease called Bend's. So that is the basically how, because of higher pressure, solubility of nitrogen increases, and because of sudden release of pressure when they come to the shore, nitrogen gets released from blood into blood vessels, and that interrupts the flow of circulation of blood, which results in the disease called blood. In order to avoid that, the deep sea divers will be using new composition by mixing easily soluble gas called helium. So what they are going to do, 11.6% of helium, then some 52% of nitrogen, and some 36% of oxygen. In this ratio, they modify the composition of air so that the harmful effects of nitrogen will be avoided. Means in the place of nitrogen, helium gets dissolved, so that helium, because it is easily soluble, it will not be coming out of, it will not be released suddenly when they come to the shore. So the problem of Bend's can be avoided to some extent. So dilution of air with helium helps in avoiding Bend's. That is understood based on Henry's law. Then you have heard of this problem called anoxia. And this problem anoxia is explained based on Henry's law. No resolution, by the way. No, remedy, by the way. See, when mountaineers climb heights, you know very well the height of air column on the peaks of mountains will be very less. As a result, partial pressure of oxygen will be less. Because partial pressure of oxygen is less, what happens? The people are unable to, the blood supply will be inactive, cellular activities will be inactive, and people are unable to think properly. They feel giddiness and all. All these problems are called anoxia. And the anoxia is arising at the higher altitudes because of lower partial pressure of oxygen. When partial pressure of oxygen is low, automatically the oxygen required for our oxygen dissolved in our blood will be reduced. So oxygen supply to tissues will be reduced, which results in this problem called anoxia. Okay, these are the applications of Henry's law. Let us quickly understand the limitations of Henry's law also. See, number one, pressure cannot be too high. So Henry's law is not applicable at too high pressures. At the same time, temperatures cannot be too low. We know that at lower temperatures it is soluble, but at the same time if the temperatures are too low, Henry's law is not applicable. Number three, the gaseous solute should not ionize or should not associate, means the molecule should not associate or dissociate in the solution. If so, Henry's law cannot be applicable. At the same time, the gaseous solute cannot have any reaction with the solvent. If it happens to have reaction with the solvent, again the effect of pressure on dissolution as explained by Henry's law is not directly applicable to it. Okay, these are certain limitations of Henry's law, and that is the conclusion of Henry's law. But of course, the numerical exercise is equally important. So let us go to entrance corner 2.4 to understand how to solve the numericals related to Henry's law. Okay. First one is a straightforward simple numerical. Henry's law constant for dissolution of methane in benzene is given, and by the way, methane is a nonpolar gas, that's why it will be soluble in nonpolar liquid only. So methane in benzene is given. Then he is asking if the pressure exerted is 760 millimeters of mercury, which is of course 1 atmosphere exactly. If 760 millimeters of mercury pressure is exerted, then what will be the solubility of methane? When he said solubility and he is asking based on Henry's law constant, you should understand he is asking solubility based on mole, solubility in terms of mole fraction only. Directly use the formula. So pressure is equal to Henry's law constant into mole fraction, that is solubility. Therefore solubility, you can't have easier question than this. Therefore solubility is equal to pressure divided by Henry's law constant. Luckily both pressure and Henry's law constant values are given in same units, so direct substitution, nothing else to do. So 760 divided by 4.27 into 10 power 5. And if you notice carefully, every answer has something into 10 power minus 5. So I will take 10 power 5 up and write it as 10 power minus 5. Now the only thing I am left with is what will be this value. So I can be very comfortable because options are quite far away. 178, 278, 300 and 150. So 4, I'll round it off to 4 actually because it is 4.3 and see which will be the nearest answer. 4 ones, then you are left with 3. 3 means 36, approximately 190. Because this value is slightly larger than 4, this should come slightly smaller than 190. Which is nearest to this? Obviously option A. 178 into 10 power minus 5 will be the mole fraction of methane in benzene at 760 millimeters of mercury. Okay. Now if you look at second problem, in second problem he has given some obvious information that we know already, that air is a mixture of many gases, out of which oxygen holds 20% by volume and nitrogen holds 79% by volume. We know it since childhood, not an issue. Now he is mentioning that in this context, in the context of this problem, water is in equilibrium with air at 10 atmospheres. Means please understand that statement is very simple, that the air is exerting a pressure of 10 atmosphere when the air is being mixed with water. Air dissolves in water to become a solution, right? Now, in the beginning when I was introducing Henry's law, that's what I told you. The mass of gas that can be dissolved is directly proportional to the pressure of the gas, which is in equilibrium with the solution. So, air is in equilibrium with the solution, in which air is dissolved in water. So there is a solution of air dissolved in water and the air is in equilibrium with that solution and that air is exhibiting a pressure of 10 atmosphere. Now, he has given you Henry's law constant for oxygen and Henry's law constant for nitrogen separately, and he is asking you composition of oxygen in that solution and composition of nitrogen in that solution separately. Oxygen followed by nitrogen respectively. Means he has given the pressure exerted by the whole sample of air and he is asking you the composition of individual components of it. Clear? And before I go for solving the question, I'll give you detailed solution, no issues. But all of you read the options once and without putting pen on paper and without doing any calculation, can you tell me the correct answer? I'm waiting for you. See, without even calculation, you must have paused the video, pause it, try to answer it and then get back. Without solving anything, you can tell the answer is option B. Why? See here. You know very well composition of oxygen is 20% by volume, composition of nitrogen is 79% by volume. So, in this equilibrium pressure that air is exerting, who is contributing more? Obviously nitrogen. So, pressure exerted by nitrogen must be more than the pressure exerted by oxygen. So, obviously, extent of dissolution should be more for nitrogen than for oxygen. Here, oxygen and nitrogen respectively they have given. So, first value should be smaller, second value should be larger. In the first option, you have first value larger. In the third and fourth option, you have both same. Both cannot be dissolved at the same extent because their partial pressures would be different obviously. Is that clear? So that's how you can say answer is option B. If you did not understand that shortcut, it's sad, rewind the video and understand it, because in entrances, you have to make use of options like this. For some small percentage of questions, options will be so comfortable. Examiner, while setting these options, only thinks priorly. Let children have some breathing space without doing any calculation. Let them answer this so that they can save time for other questions. Now, if we are conceptually not strong and if you don't have this common sense and if you are not focused on the options, we will waste time by doing the entire calculation. Now, assuming this is a board exam question, I will do a detailed solution for you. Okay. Now, the net pressure exerted was 10 atmosphere. Now, what is the basic formula for calculation? Partial pressure of oxygen is equal to kH of oxygen into mole fraction of oxygen, one part of it. Partial pressure of nitrogen is equal to kH of nitrogen into its mole fraction, second part of it, right? You have to solve both the equations. For that, you need this and this because they are asking composition of oxygen and nitrogen. And they have given this and this. Now the only thing you need is this and this. Instead of directly giving pressure exerted by oxygen and pressure exerted by nitrogen separately, he has given the total pressure exerted by this one, air. Now you know the percentage by volume, so you calculate the pressure exerted by each gas independently. So that way, partial pressure of oxygen will be equal to 20% of 10 atmospheres. 20% of 10 atmospheres is going to be 2 atmosphere, but by the way, kH value is not given in atmospheres. kH value is given in millimeters of mercury. So you will have to convert atmosphere into millimeters of mercury. You know very well that 1 atmosphere is 760 millimeters of mercury per atmosphere, right? That's why 2 should be multiplied by 760, which comes out to be 1520 if I am not wrong. Yes, 1520 millimeters of mercury will be the partial pressure of oxygen. Therefore, mole fraction of oxygen is equal to partial pressure of oxygen divided by kH value, that is 1520 millimeters of mercury divided by 3.3 into 10 power 7 millimeters of mercury. 10 power 7, of course, he is asking you in terms of something into 10 power minus 5. So, I will have to make it 10 power 5 here. So, I can write this ratio as 330 into 10 power 5. So that you have 1520 by 330 into 10 power minus 5. Now it is 1500 by 300 approximately. That means it should be approximately 5 into 10 power minus 5. Which option is closest to 5 into 10 power minus 5 for oxygen? Because he said oxygen followed by nitrogen respectively. So this comes 4.61 into 10 power minus 5. I know you will not ask me to solve the next part, but as part of my duty, let me quickly do that also. So partial pressure of nitrogen comes out to be 79 by 100 into 10 atmospheres. Approximately 80 it is, but however, exactly let us write. So 7.9 atmospheres. Now what you do? Convert it into millimeters of mercury. That is 7.9 into 760 millimeters of mercury, which comes out to be approximately 6000 millimeters of mercury. Close to, I'm just doing the approximation, 6000 millimeters of mercury. Now what happens? Solubility of nitrogen gas, is equal to 6000 divided by whatever the KH value has given you, 6.51 into 10 power 7. Again, simplify it, you will end up getting 9.22 into 10 power minus 5 for nitrogen. Was that convenient? Good. Look at problem number 3. Partial pressure of methane at some temperature is given. See, everywhere they must have mentioned temperature. But because it is constant and is not involved in our formulae, not to worry about it. Partial pressure of methane at some temperature is given 0.98 bar. And KH value for dissolution of methane in that particular solvent is given, that is 41.85 kilobar. Now he is asking you to calculate solubility not in terms of mole fraction but in terms of grams per liter. See, only until calculating mole fraction this is a Henry's law problem. Later steps are actually mole concept problem because they are asking you to convert mole fraction into grams per liter. Let us do that. We are very familiar and very strong with mole concept. I know that, all of you. So, not an issue for us. Now, first what you do? Find out the mole fraction. So, find mole fraction of methane, for which everything required is directly given to you. That is, mole fraction of methane should be equal to its partial pressure divided by KH value, and observe the pressure is given in bar and KH value is in kilobar. You will have to convert this also into bar. So 0.98 divided by 41.85 into 10 power 3 it is going to be. 10 power 3. I will make it a bit comfortable for calculation. Okay. So I will write it as 98 into 10 power minus 2, okay, divided by, I will write 41.85 as 42 into 10 power 3. This goes up and becomes 10 power minus 5. Let's work on that. Now, 42 will divide this one 2 times. If you divide, you will be left with 84. So 98 minus 84, whatever is left, I think 140 will be left, and that will be going approximately 3 times. That's enough. So 10 power 3 goes up and becomes 10 power minus 3. So it is 2.3 into 10 power minus 3 is the mole fraction of methane in that particular solution. There our Henry's law is over. Now what is the task left out? Converting this mole fraction into grams per liter. He has given you, you got mole fraction, now you have to convert it into grams per liter. Now, to get grams, you need moles, right? So, in second step, what you do? Find number of moles per liter. Number of moles of methane per liter. That means, I am asking you to convert mole fraction into molarity. Then you know number of moles of methane per liter. Then from number of moles finding out grams is not an issue. Correct? Now you observe. See, what do you mean by mole fraction? So many moles in total number of moles of the solution we are talking about. Right? Now, I want it per liter of water. He mentioned clearly aqueous solution. I want it per liter of water. That's why number of moles of water will be equal to 1000 divided by 18. If you want to calculate per liter of water, number of moles of water will be 1000 divided by 18. Where from did I get this ratio 1000 divided by 18? Let me explain. You know density of water is equal to 1 gram per ml. Means every ml of water weighs 1 gram, every gram of water occupies 1 ml. Therefore, 1000 ml, which is 1 liter, I can write it as 1000 grams. I can consider it as 1000 grams for all theoretical aspects. Practically, this 1 gram per ml density is true only at 4 degrees Celsius. I agree, but still, for all theoretical purposes, we take 1 gram per ml for all temperatures. Assuming that 1000 ml is 1000 grams. So, if I want number of moles of water, divide the weight by gram molecular weight, right? What is gram molecular weight of water? 18. So, I am dividing the weight of water in 1 liter, that is 1000 grams, by gram molecular weight, 18 grams per mole. Grams gets cancelled, mole goes up, you will get number of moles. Clear? That comes out to be 55.56. By the way, this is very popular value. Molarity of water, they will ask you. Molarity of water is 55.56 moles per liter. So, in every liter of water, there are 55.56 moles. Now, how you would have got mole fraction of methane? Number of moles of methane by number of moles of methane plus number of moles of water you will have to do. Now, as I just discussed, number of moles of solvent will be so large that adding number of moles of solute to it will not make any difference. So, I can write it as number of moles of methane divided by number of moles of water. Therefore, I can say 2.3 into 10 power minus 3, that is mole fraction you got in the first step, is equal to number of moles of methane by number of moles of water per liter, because you want number of moles per liter only, right? So, number of moles of water per liter. How much was that? 55.56. Therefore, number of moles of methane is equal to 2.3 into 10 power minus 3 into 55.56. Let's not simplify here. We have one more step to go. Now, step 3. I have shortage of space, but still I can manage. Now you got number of moles per liter, but you want grams per liter. That means convert moles to grams. So you want grams per liter. Now you know 1 mole of methane is 16 grams. 12 for carbon, 4 into 1, 4 for methane, 4 for hydrogen. So 12 plus 4, 16. So 1 mole methane is 16 grams. So many moles of methane is equal to how many grams? So weight of methane will be 2.3 into 10 power minus 3 into 55.56 into 16. If you do this multiplication, that is the number of grams of methane you have in the dissolved state. And you have already assumed 1 liter of water in this state. So how many ever grams you are getting is per liter of water only. So that's how you calculated mole fraction of methane for given values and converted it to grams per liter. Okay, do the multiplication, check the answer from your options. You are going to get 0.0208 grams per liter. That you will realize when you multiply. Okay, thank you. Let us go to the next problem, by the way. Question number 4, according to me, is not a chemistry question. It's a simple ratio and proportion question, because as an extension of what you obtained in question number 3, he is asking calculate the mass of methane that can be dissolved in 200 ml of water. We already calculated the amount of methane that can be dissolved per liter of water. Now he is asking you calculate it for 200 ml. It's over. From the previous problem, you solve it. It's very easy. Then check the solution. From the previous problem, you know that 1000 ml of water can dissolve. What the answer you got in the previous problem? 0.0208 grams, right? Almost 0.021 grams. So 1000 ml of water can dissolve so many grams. Therefore, 200 ml can dissolve how many grams? 0.021 divided by 1000 into 200. 200 will divide 1000 5 times, and 5 will divide this one 0, 0, 0, 4 something. Okay, 42 grams. That can be simply written as 4.2 into 10 power minus 3 grams. So whatever the options were given to you. So it was a very simple problem. Let us not spend any more time on that. Moving on to question number 5, students. For dissolution of oxygen in water, he has mentioned solubility is 0.05 grams per liter. He has given KH value also, and he is asking you to calculate pressure at which oxygen is dissolved. This is a kind of reverse of the third question that you have solved. In third question, he asked solubility in grams per liter. So we got mole fraction, we converted mole fraction to grams per liter. Now here what he has done? He has given solubility in grams per liter. But in the formula to calculate pressure, you need it in mole fraction. So first you have to convert grams per liter to mole fraction, then substitute in the formula. Okay. So step 1, grams per liter to mole fraction. To do that, what is the formula for mole fraction of oxygen here? xO2 should be equal to number of moles of oxygen divided by number of moles of oxygen plus number of moles of water, right? Now we have already established, because he has mentioned per liter of water, we have already established that number of moles of water in 1 liter will be 55.56. We got this. Now we want number of moles of oxygen. Now he has given mass, you want number of moles. So simple. So you know very well 32 grams of oxygen is equal to 1 mole. Let me change this pen. So since 32 grams of oxygen is equal to 1 mole, 0.05 grams is equal to. So I can say 0.05 I write as 5 into 10 power minus 2 divided by 32. 32 will divide 5 how many times? 0.50. So once it will go. Then you will be left with 18. So approximately 5 times and later 6. So 0.156 into 10 power minus 2, or I can write it as 1.56 into 10 power minus 3 moles is number of moles of what? Sorry, oxygen. Okay. We calculated number of moles of oxygen. Now substitute in the expression for mole fraction of oxygen. Now you see, number of moles of oxygen is 1.56 into 10 power minus 3 divided by 55.6 should be added to 1.56 into 10 power minus 3. Does it make any big difference adding this small value to this? So I will just take 55.56. This is mole fraction. Let's not simplify. We can use it in the second step as such. Now what do you need? You need partial pressure of oxygen. I mean pressure at which oxygen is dissolved. You know the formula. Pressure is equal to KH value into this one, mole fraction, xO2. Now, KH value he has given you in kilobar. So answer also you will get in kilobar. And if you check your options, if I am not wrong, options were given in bar. So convert this 44 kilobar into bar so that directly we will get the answer in required units. Okay. So 44 into 10 power 3 into 1.56 into 10 power minus 3 divided by 55.56. 10 power minus 3, 10 power 3 will get cancelled. This will divide this one, with 11, this goes 4 times, this goes 5 times approximately, slightly more it could be. Then 5 will divide 4, 0.2 times, so 1.56 into 0.2. Just multiply it and see which comes out to be the nearest answer for you. Okay, so he has given you solubility in terms of grams per liter, but in the Henry's law formula we have it in terms of mole fraction. So we converted grams per liter to mole fraction by taking these many grams and converting it into mole and dividing it by number of moles of solvent. Then substitute that mole fraction and multiply it with KH value to get whatever the answer you want. That is pressure at which oxygen is dissolved. That is your question number 5 from entrance corner 2.4. 2 more questions left. Let's proceed. Question number 6 again is slightly similarly dissimilar to question number 5. There grams per liter is given, you have to convert to mole fraction. Here moles per liter is given, you have to convert to mole fraction. Later there using kH value you calculated pressure, here using pressure you have to calculate kH value, same thing. So step 1 again here is converting moles per liter to mole fraction. Okay, now it's pretty clear from the information that number of moles of nitrogen is 0.45. Okay, then we already established that per liter number of moles of water is 55.56. Now mole fraction of nitrogen is number of moles of nitrogen by number of moles of nitrogen by number of moles of nitrogen plus number of moles of water. So since this looks a fairly large value, we can add it, need not ignore it. Even if you ignore, nothing wrong. Okay, because I don't find options very close, so even if you ignore, no issues. But however, 0.45 by 55.56 plus 0.45. Let me take it approximately 56. Okay, so 0.45 by 56. No need to ignore, I'm just adding. Right, so you got the mole fraction. Now you want KH value. So KH is equal to partial pressure of nitrogen divided by mole fraction. Now pressure he has given 697 bar, but you want the answer in kilobar. So right now you can take 697 divided by 1000 to get it in kilobar. Now 697 divided by 1000 kilobar is the pressure. That should be divided by 0.45 by 56. So I can write 56 divided by 0.45. Okay, simplify that and get your answer. Hopefully you will end up getting 86.8. That is question number 6. Let's move on to question number 7, students. Okay, see, when there was a dissolved ethane of 6.56 into 10 power minus 3 grams, the pressure exerted by it was 1 bar. Then if the dissolved amount of ethane is 5 into 10 power minus 2 grams, what would have been the pressure? So if this amount requires this much pressure, this amount requires how much pressure? This is the question he is asking. He is talking about weights of substances. I agree. Now the basic formula we have is pressure is equal to KH value into mole fraction of that particular gas. This is the basic formula we have. Now if you talk about the two states, two conditions here, you can say P1 is equal to KH into X1, P2 is equal to KH into X2. Please understand. Let us derive a simple expression to solve this problem. Now you know KH is a constant. So when you take the ratio P1 by P2, you can say X1 by X2 simply, because KH is constant for a given gas in a given liquid at a given temperature. Liquid is the same, gas is the same, and temperature is constant. Did he mention any different temperatures there? Did he mention any different solvents there? No. Same solvent, same temperature. That's why KH value will be obviously same. So I can cancel it and write P1 by P2 is equal to X1 by X2. Now what is mole fraction? Number of moles of solute by number of moles of solute plus number of moles of solvent. Now you see, did he mention anything about variation in the weight of solvent? No. In the same amount of solvent he is talking. In the same amount of solvent, if this much is dissolved, this pressure is exerted. If this much is dissolved, how much pressure is exerted is the question, right? When the amount of solvent is same, then obviously mole fraction will be equal to number of moles. Mole fraction will be equal to number of moles because amount of solvent is constant in both cases. So I can say P1 by P2 is equal to number of moles of ethane in first case by number of moles of ethane in second case, I can say. Please understand where I am arriving at. Now you see, both cases ethane, its molar mass is fixed. So number of moles is nothing but weight by molar mass. Number of moles is nothing but weight by molar mass. Number of molar mass will be same for ethane, so I can say P1 by P2 finally is equal to weight of ethane dissolved in first case by weight of ethane dissolved in second case. So we have arrived at a simple formula. There is nothing. So next time when a similar question comes, you can directly take P1 by P2 is equal to W1 by W2 as long as they didn't change the quantity of solvent in both cases. They didn't mention any two different KH values in both cases. If temperature changes, nature of solvent changes, KH value changes, that he did not mention any variation there. Number two, if the amount of solvent changes, then again you will have to mole fractions, two different mole fractions will be there, that he did not mention anywhere. Since the weight of solvent is constant, temperature is constant, everything is constant, you can write P1 by P2 is equal to W1 by W2. Now P1 he mentioned 1 bar, so 1 by P2 is equal to W1, first case of weight was 6.56 into 10 power minus 3 grams divided by W2 is 5 into 10 power minus 3 grams. Therefore, P2 is equal to 5 into 10 power minus 2 divided by 6.56 into 10 power minus 3. Okay, if you simplify, please understand you have got 5 by 6.56 I understand. So which comes out to be 0.764. But 10 power minus 2 cancels 10 power minus 3. You will be left with 10 power minus 1 in the denominator. That goes up and becomes 10. So final answer is going to be 7.64 bar actually. Which is not there in your options. Option D, they should have actually given as 7.64 bar. So don't worry, you don't have a correct option in the answers. However, the correct answer is 7.64 bar. Hope you have understood it. Now, with this, we have finished the concept of solubility. As I told you, this chapter has 4 parts. Concentration terms, which I skipped, which will be revised through questions. Number 2, concept of solubility, which we have finished with this. Wherein we took 3 sessions, I agree, but still we have revised fundamentals and we have learnt everything in detail. In the whole concept, when it comes to numericals, only one concept you have for numericals, that is Henry's law. Remaining all are theoretical concepts. So from rest of the concepts, you get only theoretical questions. Now, I am winding up this session because I am leaving you with 2 homeworks. One is, there is a home exercise for numerical practice of Henry's law immediately after entrance corner 2.4 in your EPL. You have to solve that home exercise today. Number 2, there is exam corner 2.1 in which all theoretical questions coming from these many concepts, concept of solubility, molarity, etc. are given. In that, knowledge and understanding based questions you answer by yourself whenever you want. But I am leaving you with the homework of application and reasoning based questions, both 1 and 2 mark questions from exam corner 2.1. So quickly, home exercise related to Henry's law, and number 2, application and reasoning based questions of exam corner 2.1. Please answer these exercises today itself so that you will get more confidence up to this. Next session, I will be moving to vapor pressure of solutions, in which about fundamentals of vapor pressure we will learn, and then we will enter into how vapor pressure changes for a liquid when you add a solute and prepare a solution for it. Okay, all the best students, keep revising, keep studying at least 8 hours per day. Okay, thank you.